So I recently did a review on Panasonic's 991/981 camcorder, but there is a newer model that was released in 2018, and this is called the WXF1. And in this video, we're gonna compare it to the 991/981, and we're gonna look at it on its own as well and see, is it a worthy upgrade to this camcorder? And is it something you should consider getting today? But in this video, we're gonna focus on image quality. Are there any differences? If so, in what areas? Now, both camcorders, they look kind of the same. They are similar in many areas. They're both nice and compact. They're reasonably priced. They both have 4K 30 video, and you can shoot 1080p if you want. Both have very similar menus, which can be a little confusing and convoluted. On both, when you pull out the viewfinder or open the screen, it reveals the lens. Both share the variable speed zoom rocker on top and the photo button, and both can do 4K photo. But the newer WXF1 is styled a little more sporty, especially with that red stripe on the top. Same ports on the side of the camera, but the XF1 has more modern stylized stitching. Both have fully articulating screens, tilt-up viewfinders, and both use the same battery. Except to manual focus on the older camera, you have to use this uncomfortable ring at the bottom. With the XF1, you could set the front ring for either focus or zoom, and you do that in the menu. They both have a lot of bells and whistles. They have what's called intelligent zoom, which increases the zoom range without degrading image quality like digital zoom. They have some cinematic effects and slow motion. If you're interested in those, check out my other video on the 981/991. I go into a lot of detail. I don't want to have to repeat myself here. Let's just take a second to clear up a little confusion about the Panasonic's 4K camcorder line. The 991 has been discontinued. That has a viewfinder and two cameras, a little tiny camera on the LCD screen, which you can use for narration. The 981 is basically the same, except it doesn't have that little camera, and it also doesn't have a viewfinder. Now the XF1, which we're reviewing here, does have the second camera and a viewfinder, and it's a newer sensor. The VX1 is the same as the XF1 without a viewfinder, without the second camera, but with a much lower price. Now the sensor in the XF1 is the same one in the professional HC-VX981. That's a $1,600 camera with a lot more features, but it's interesting to note that Panasonic must have a lot of confidence in the XF1's insides because it's shared with a professional camera. And Panasonic does boast that this is for enthusiasts and pros, and they talk about the brilliant image quality and the new lens, the wide-angle 25mm lens with a 32 times zoom in intelligent zoom compared to 25 for the older model. But it's really the wide angle which sets this new camera apart from the old ones. Take a look. This is the older 991 in wide angle. When you compare it to the XF1, you can just see so much more to the left, right, up, and down. And when you're in a tight space, or even if you're doing any type of landscape, or if you want to vlog, that wide angle is important. Here's an example of vlogging. Here's the XF1 with my arm fully extended, but I have kind of long arms, so I'm going to sort of simulate arms that aren't as long. You can hear also the on-camera mic. Panasonic boasts of a new stabilization technology. We're going to take a look at that. Now, first I want you to see how far we're going to be zooming in into this patio on the roof. Now, I'm going to be hand-holding at full zoom, so that's a real test for stabilization. Watch it on the XF1 and also compare the reach on the 991. About the same reach, but I think the XF1, I can hold a little more rock solid, although they are pretty close, as is the telephoto is pretty close. So it's really that wide angle that's the biggest difference. So I brought both cameras to Central Park to see some cherry blossoms. Here's a wide-angle shot with the XF1, and here is the same shot now. I'm going to use the 991. And take a look at the difference. The thing that struck me the most is color saturation in these scenes, a little richer and more contrasty with the XF1. Back to the 991, something is strange in the upper left here, like a haziness. It's not background blur, it's almost like lens flare, or something just doesn't look quite right. There was a box around her face as if it should be in focus, but it's not quite focused. Compared to the XF1, I'm getting a richer, sharper, more contrasty, cleaner image here. And she looks very happy posing with the cherry blossoms. And at full zoom, hand holding this shot too, it looks very steady with the XF1. This is an impressive image. Now, I caught this little family photo shoot in the park. Again, this is at full zoom. This is not quite as sharp. I don't know, maybe the sun wasn't hitting it at the right angle. But when we go to the 991, you're going to notice a stark difference. It almost looks like a filter was applied to the lens, and I swear to you that it wasn't. This just looks strange to me, hazy, lacking contrast, and just a bit off. I'm playing it back again here just to show you that something doesn't look quite right. At full zoom, I'm noticing it is a bit shakier too than the FX1, and again here there's more contrast, and this just looks better to me. Now, there was a note posted at the base of this cherry tree, so I decided to use this as a resolution test the photo mode too of both cameras. So I'm going to take a shot now with the FX1 and crop in to take a look at the sharpness. So notice the text itself. So I took the same photo with the 991 and I'm cropping in, and look how much fuzzier the text is compared to the XF1, which I think has a sharper lens. Oh, sorry. Do me a favor, if you're getting something out of this video, just give it a thumbs up and subscribe, as it really does help the channel. I gotta shoot something. Well, even though these are not cherry blossoms, it is a pretty tree and can help showcase the picture quality of the XF1 and the zoom speed. This is the slow zoom speed, and by pressing on the lever faster, you get a faster zoom speed. And check out the detail in the next scene. Look at the trees in the background, and that orange ball is far, but now it's really close.
Your basic orange ball floating in the water.
And to show you how well the camera captures motion as opposed to static orange balls, this dog has a lot of motion, a lot of energy, and a lot of life. And here it is in the XF1. I want you to again compare to the older 991. And again, the color saturation almost looks as black and white as the dog. In all fairness, you can adjust color saturation in the menu, so if you wanted to do that, you could. But I found a lot of times if you do that, if you have people in the image, sometimes oversaturates the skin and could make them look too red.
Your face is red.
These dogs' faces will soon be red from running so fast, but the XF1 captures the motion quite well. This is one of the things that's so nice about a built-in lens on a camcorder. You have all that range from telephoto to wide, and you can still get background blur if you get close enough to your subject. Now, Panasonic makes some hefty claims that the low light improvement is significant in this camcorder, about 70% better than prior models due to the large sensor. Well, it's really not a large sensor. It's actually a slightly smaller sensor than the 991-981. So let's put this to the test. So here we have both cameras side by side in my studio in a low lit environment, and we're going to see how they do. Here is the 991. Pay close attention. We're going to go to the XF1, which looks slightly brighter, but also to me slightly softer. I think the XF1 is using more aggressive noise reduction. It's just a personal preference. Now with the lights down really low, this is how it looks to the naked eye, basically. And here is the XF1. You can hardly see anything here, not much of an image. The 991 does have an image, but there's a lot of grain, so it looks like the gain is set higher on the 991. There are night modes for really dark scenes. The night mode itself really brightens up the image, but if there's any kind of motion at all, like I'm just moving even just slightly, it's really blurry. You can also try the infrared mode, which I call the ghost hunting mode, which puts everything in like a ghastly green mode. It does brighten the image, but it makes people's eyes look, well, a little scary. Maybe that's the look you're going for. The 991 had a video light, which was dropped on the XF1. Maybe it's a good thing. It was just way too bright and blinding. So Panasonic claims there's been some significant autofocus improvements, and look at this little video they have on their site showing how it will stay in focus even when the subject is moving fast and close. So, well, I put on my Cubs outfit, and I'm going to try the same thing.
You look slightly ridiculous.
Maybe, but is the autofocus as good as Panasonic claims? Here we go. Well, it's focused on the fence in the back at this point. Let's go up a couple of seconds. Still focused on the fence. My face is not in focus. Finally, it gets it. Let's repeat the test one more time as I run towards the camera. There it goes. So pretty close, not too bad. Panasonic also makes the claim that close focus has been improved and focusing speed, as you can see from this cupcake test where these cupcakes are real close and there's a lot of motion. So I'm going to repeat this cupcake test on my own. Take a look at the little ornaments on the cupcakes, and it does appear that they are snapping into focus pretty quickly. So pass on the close focus cupcake test. Now I'm going to try to stress the face detect autofocus in the XF1 in a fairly low lit room, and you can see that the box is capturing my face, and as I move it seems to follow it. I'm trying to hide, but it picks it right up again. With certain cameras I noticed even if there's a box around the face it may not be in focus in reality, so I checked and yes, I was in focus. Now when we turn the lights down real low, we don't see that little white box that often. There it is for a second, but it's not really noticing my face nearly as much as when the lights were bright. So I was concerned, well, how is it going to actually record? But fortunately, my face does look in focus even though the box didn't pick it up. And I figured I'd get out my shining cardboard twins, and it's interesting that the camera picks up their face more often than it picks up mine. Should I be concerned about that? Maybe I should be concerned that I have these in the first place, or even this in the first place. Will it pick up Reagan from The Exorcist's face? And there's no box to be found, so the camera does not recognize her.
Well, this just keeps getting weirder.
Well, speaking of weird, the little sub camera that's built into this camcorder, some may consider that strange. Is it useful though?
See, it's not very wide is the problem at all. You can swivel the screen up and down, and you can go side to side. You can swivel it all the way forward, but it's very, from holding the camera like this, it's very tight.
And yes, the image is baked into the picture, so you can't remove it later, although you can change where the little box appears in the frame before you start recording. But you can also use a cell phone's camera as that second camera as well. But for that, you're going to need to download the image app from Panasonic, which is the current app they're using. You can actually even use more than one cell phone if you want to create like a little production. So if you are going to use this camera in a professional capacity, it does have the mic and headphone ports, which the 981 has as well. Has HDMI out if you want to do live streaming or use a recorder. And it also has no recording limit, which is probably one of the most important things of a camcorder over a digital camera. As we all know, camcorders are getting harder and harder to find, but many of us love camcorders. So is the WXF1 worthy? Well, I think it's an improvement over the 981. The picture just looks cleaner. There's a little less of a haze over the lens. I like the manual focusing ring and the wider angle. That's really important because many times you're going to be in tight spaces and there's nothing you can do about the 981. It's just not wide enough. Tell me, do you think this camera is worthy of a successor? Do you think that the manufacturers are going to come back into camcorders, or do you think they're just going to die out? I'd like to hear what you have to say in the comments section. Thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos on the way, and we'll see you in the next one.
That's all, folks.